Hey, and we're live, and look who I have with me. This gentleman is the sweetest of spirits, genuinely a wonderful, absolute, incredible soul. I've been watching Santos's videos for quite some time, and Santos has a channel, if you're not aware of his channel, it's Mr. Astrotheology. And as many of people have heard me speak of, that astrology and the Bible are not separate. Yeah, so when I speak of scripture and helping to understand, there's probably no one better to help you see and connect to those links between those two. And I think we've probably chatted back and forth on email, trying to get together at some point in some stage. And finally, we're here in Santos. This is Santos, and you can give the correct pronunciation if I don't pronounce it right. But I'm Sicilian. I'm a Sicilian Jew, so a Roman Jew. So I'm as confused as a nun on a honeymoon. And so I pronounce it more Italian. So bonacci is what I would say. Santos bonacci. But I'll let you introduce yourself and give us a little bit, if you would, Santos, a little bit about your background, how you kind of came about into the studies, and what you speak of. And I see your microphone is muted, so we got to make sure we unmute that. There you are. And so I'll let you go from there, Santos.
Oh, lovely. Thanks, Derek. I really appreciate your warm welcome. I know that you've been watching my videos. You've told me that, and vice versa. I have watched many of your interviews, and I really appreciate the depth of scripture and understanding that you have. I always enjoy your work. It's refreshing, it rings and resonates with me and my work. So I'm really happy to be with you. And I hope we can do a really good show.
Yeah, it's funny, but it's amazing that somebody that goes to your channel, I've had many people say to me, oh, I've gone to Santos's channel, and and he talks about different things that you talk about, and I go, really, no, yes and no. And as I've continually talked about, I use this same rock as the description. I said, if I'm describing this rock from this side, and Santos is describing it from this side, it's going to sound like two very different things, but it's the same rock. So it is. It's just from a different angle, and that's why people have a difficult time, because they see things in a singularity, and it's much bigger than that. And it reminds me of the ancient Buddhist saying about the master that puts his blind servants before the elephant, and he asks them to describe the elephant, and one describes, touches the leg and says it's like a thick barrel, and one touches the tail and says it's like a strong rope, and one touches the trunk and says it's like a big hose. But none of them could describe the elephant, right? Because the elephant is too big. It's just too big, and you cannot grasp it all. So that's why I always explain to people it is critically important that you don't shut yourself down, that you listen to Santos, that you listen to me. You don't take what I say exclusively. You don't take what he says exclusively. You don't take what anybody says. You take it all in. Somebody would say to me, why would you read the Satanic Bible? Why wouldn't I? Right? I know how to discern where, what it is, because I already see it from this side of the table. I'd like to see it from another side, and iron sharpens iron. So I appreciate that, and I really appreciate your sentiment, Santos. That coming from you, I know your intellect and what you know, and the mere fact that what I say resonates with you at all is a blessing. I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It really is. It's lovely to see, and we do need each other. Mm-hmm. No one's going to be able to put it all together on their own, and that's how it works. We are parts of each other ultimately, even though we are all one and united at the very, very highest level, same source, but we are, I guess, fractalized, and where we are in our journey now has many conditions upon us, but liberation and God's rest is upon us. Mm-hmm. The rest of Christ and the 1,000 years of peace is just around the corner. And you were mentioning before about how syncretism is able to free people.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's because it teaches how to be what Jesus taught us, to be a king and a priest. So when he was the archetype of the king, hence King of the Jews, and the Jews would be you and I, those who are going from a called state into a chosen state.
Mm-hmm.
The Jew is just a period, a transition from human, Jew to God.
Mm-hmm.
And so he taught many lessons. Give unto Caesar what is Caesar's, and what is God unto God. He taught how to answer questions in a court case scenario other than answering, which is swearing.
Mm-hmm.
You mustn't swear, but you ask the questions, hence you are acting as king, asking. And so he also taught a fine lesson when he walked on the water. His disciples were sleeping in the ship, the citizen ship, the Roman maritime ship. Mm-hmm. So he showed and set the example that we need to walk on those waters. We don't stay in the ship for security and sleep. This is very dangerous. You need to get out. Despite the storm, we can walk on the waters, maritime and admiralty law. And you see, and then St. Peter wanted to join the Lord, and he said, can I also? And he said, yes, come forth. And he started walking, but then he sank. And this illustrates how some people have little faith. They can grow their faith, but if they have little faith, they will eventually be submerged by the temptations and the way of the world. So with faith, we can do it. And Jesus set the example, you see. So essentially, Jesus is liberating us in how to be a king, to be free, and how to be a priest. He also taught that if you want to raise your consciousness, you have to lift up the Son of Man, as Moses lifted up the copper serpent in the wilderness, and then you will be born again, Nicodemus. Mm-hmm. So Nicodemus said, how am I supposed to be born again? Can I come out of my mother's womb again? What is this ridiculous story? I'm already born. Mm-hmm. Well, he was saying that you have to transcend the carnal mind, and you have to be born again in the spiritual mind. Mm-hmm. And this is what it means to be a Christian, to be christened.
Mm-hmm. You know, it's amazing to me that people miss the born again perspective. The mere fact that has been captured and made kind of like a magical spell that you can go up and say something and it just happens. But you and I both know it's far from that. That it is a removing of, it is somewhat going back in. You must become like a little child. Go back to the beginning. Forget what you've been taught. Forget everything you know. Look at everything with those fresh eyes, with that innocence, with complete wonderment. Look at everything new. Find it and do not have any preconceived notions as to what it is or where it leads. And that is the hero's journey, right? That's the call to adventure. And it is a brilliant path. It is not one that many people can do, as you just described as Peter getting out of the boat, having to walk on water, right? That he lost faith because of fear and challenges. And because that path, as you've learned, and we'll talk about that later on. We're going to talk about some of the challenges, the more recent challenges that you faced and how you've handled those. But it is brilliant. I mean, you're saying exactly, and this is why you could see in what I say, what you speak of, even though you can speak it from a astrological standpoint. I can see absolutely how you see it through my eyes and go, this guy's saying the same thing. It's brilliant. But continue on, because I love that you're taking the words, and this is where rightly dividing the word. Why do you have to rightly divide something that doesn't have something hidden within it? And that there's messages within there where you're saying, asking, right? You're asking. The fact that Christ always asked the question in response people have heard me say on this channel many, many times that if you want somebody to know the truth, you have to ask them the question and allow them to discover the truth on their own. So it's not mine, it's theirs now. And that's how you're talking about that he's making them kings and then priests first. I mean, and people say, you know, they want to have opposition and say, you can't be a king and you can't be a priest and you can't be God. Well, if everybody is, well, that's quite different, right? And how you accept and understand such a position or such an office in arrogance and ego, of course, the person that is living in arrogance and ego will always see that office as corrupted. They won't be able to see it as pure and humble and clean and true and peaceful. They won't be able to see that because they aren't clean and humble and peaceful and true. So they'll never be able to see it. And Christ mentioned those things as well when he would say, you speak of what you know. You don't speak of the things that you don't know. You speak of what you know. And you speak of evil. That's why you're evil. Because that's all you can see. You speak of what you know, not of what you don't know. And, you know, those are words that he said to Nicodemus as well. So, and his marveling at, you know, you're the teacher of Israel and you can't see this? Like, you're a teacher of Israel, the one that has to wrestle with God, right? The wrestle with God before Jerusalem being peaceful, right? So wrestling with God being Israel, all of a sudden you've got to wrestle with the fake God in order to find out exactly who God truly is. And so it's brilliant. I love your separations of those words. So everybody listening, listen very carefully as Santos speaks about these things, because words, obviously, many people already know this, but spelling or spells. So the mere fact that speaking it, there's power in the spoken word. There's power in the spoken word because you'll receive it as truth, even if you don't consciously understand the truth. So it does come within you. You might understand it in your present psychosis, I like to say, in your present psychosis in the world. You'll understand it in the way the world told you to understand it, but that's where the deception in there lies. The truth and the lie is always in the same sentence, and it's not necessarily a lie. They're both true in both directions. One's just not a good direction. The other one is good, so it's up to you. So please continue. Tell me more about. Tell everybody, if you can, Santos, more about you know, where you began in that. I mean, when was the first awakening? What is that to you? That awakening, was that the hero's journey? Did it come out of nowhere? So where did you come from in that that you discovered these things that you know? Was it, you know, did you go to a university and learn these things, or were they given and granted to you?
Well, before I answer that, I'd like to just finish off that thought of yours, where you mentioned quite correctly that the truth and the lie, they're both there, right in the same sentence. And in fact, the scriptures tell you, God says, I am your God, Jehovah, and I give you the truth and the lie for you to choose which one you will take. And the scripture also says that the Bible is a two-edged sword. So, and it is able to split the soul and the spirit, which is impossible because they're one and the same. It's the Father and the Son. Mm-hmm. And yet the Bible says it can do that. And so it appears to be the kind of book the kind of work that is enslaving and fooling the ones who will be fooled. But it also is liberating and freeing the ones who have more than the superficial passing interest in discovering the truth. So it does serve both purposes. You'll see churchgoers who will kill other churchgoers for their lack of understanding how the scriptures are supposed to be interpreted. So this is, in fact, you know, displaying and illustrating how it is such a powerful book that it can actually keep people ignorant. Mm-hmm. So how did I awaken to all of this? I've always been semi-awakened, you know, since a little boy. And I've always paid attention and treasured scriptures in my heart. I was a Jehovah's Witness. from little boy to 13. 13 comes, and I started wanting to snoop around out there in the big bad world. I left the witnesses, did all the regular things you do as a teenager, came back at 19 because I wanted to serve God and I wanted to do the right thing. And so I became a Jehovah's Witness. That lasted for about 25 more years, knocking on people's doors, trying to save people, etc. And then obviously, for a real truth seeker, you won't last in organizations like that. You will not last. They will wear you out. Yeah, and eventually I started seeing that this was not satisfying. It just was not satisfying my soul. I was hungering for real truth. And so 2005, I stopped going to the meetings of Jehovah's Witnesses. I was in Japan on a music tour with my band, and I decided to go on to a meeting. And after that, I didn't make any conscious decision not to go back, but I just didn't. That was the last meeting I went to. And then I lingered in limbo for about 2 years, but continuing to be the same person, wanting truth. And then someone, a friend of mine, suggested I read the book Synagogue of Satan by Andrew Carrington, something or other. He has a third name. And that set me on the path of real awakening. Now, I was very, very lucky because at that time I already had all of my studies behind me, really. I had a foundation. I was an astronomer, a musician, professional all my life, linguist, spoke 8 languages to varying degrees, did all my theology, etc. So when I started watching videos like Esoteric Agenda and Zeitgeist and getting into Jordan Maxwell and guys like this, it was so easy. There was no struggle. Everything fell into place. And I remember saying, as the great Giovanni Pico della Mirandola said in the Renaissance, his master was Marsilio Ficino, and these two are the greatest of all the Renaissance esoteric masters and teachers. And he said, divine providence has caused certain books to fall into my lap. And at the age of 24, when they killed him, he went down to Rome with 900 theses of syncretism and from Florence. And basically he was setting up a debate with all the, what he called the Apostolic Senate. Think about that one.
Yeah.
He was saying, I will debate you and I will show you how syncretism exists. And it is the science of nature and how it works and how it is being interpreted badly, theologically, literally. And so he set that up and he was going to be taken on that offer, but they started persecuting him and he realized that he was going to die. So he fled back to Florence, and eventually, I think at the age of 24, they got to him and he was poisoned. But his 900 theses of syncretism, 30 years before Martin Luther's 90 Jesuit false theses, he already had established that there is a universal prisca theologia, an ancient philosophy that is in everything. And you can't separate it. Whether you read the Quran or the Bible, you will find the science of energy and how waves carry that information. Hence, I always do my presentation based on the wave. Thank you, Walter Russell, who said, the secret of the universe lies in the wave. And so if that's true, well, then I thought, well, I'll set about disproving or proving that, because that is a massive, profound truth. And it made sense to me because the wave vibrates. It's got a polarity, positive, negative. It's duality. Whereas the pulse, which precedes the electrical wave, the pulse would be magnetism, Magnetism is a spiritual superior energy to electricity. Electricity, redshift, blue shift, the vibration is decaying. It has a massive decay factor in it. Hence, it's not reliable, it's unstable, and it's an illusion. Whereas the pulse, like your heartbeat, it radiates. There's no polarity. It just radial waves. When you throw a little stone in a pond, you get waves propagating outwardly, longitudinally. There's none of this going on. It's a true energy. It's reliable. It always increases, hence magnetism, magnitude. And as a result of this radiation wave, it creates a vibration wave. They are totally different and must be understood as differently to be able to understand how nature works. Mm-hmm. Because then you won't fall for theories such as particle wave universe, because there aren't any particles. They don't exist. What exists is a pulse. So it's a pulse wave universe. And the pulse is radiating, it's magnetic. And that energy is reliable, it's pure, it's unconditioned. And as that radial wave propagates longitudinally through the medium, whether it's the ether, the air, it matters not, it has the same field dynamics. Because of resistance, or ohms, and resistance would be Satan, the resistor. Because of that, the transverse wave, so that's longitudinal, propagating outwardly forever, and then it meets resistance and it creates this effect, red shift, blue shift, red shift, blue shift. And so understanding the difference, that the wave is the illusion because it's temporal, it's unstable, and it is the fruit of the tree of good and evil, you see, because it gives you the lie and the truth. It gives you contrasting reality where you can now continue in the time-space continuum to enable what is really in your heart to be presented in a theatre on the earth. Earth and theatre are the same word. And so it gives us an opportunity to be able to show and unfold what is in us in time and space. Even though we transcend time and space, our source, our spirit is beyond this world. And I like to use an illustration like, say, a computer. You know, the information is stored on your hard drive in counter space. It doesn't take any space, hence a full hard drive doesn't weigh any more than an empty one. Mm-hmm. But the information is there. It's only information. And when you reboot your computer, you can resurrect and reincarnate that information. And on your screen, there's your file. All the images are there, and you can improve them and then put them back to sleep again when you shut your computer off. This is a fine way to understand how incarnations and reincarnating actually occurs. It's like a reboot, a resurrection, and it's an opportunity for improvement. You never want to open a file and desecrate it and decimate it and start all over again every time you do. Mm-hmm. What you store in your file, you know you're going to build on that, you see. But when the computer's sleeping, you don't have any opportunity to make improvements. You have to wait for a reboot. And so that's what the philosophers say. Only when you are in the time-space continuum, experiencing life, is where you can make improvements. Hence, you know, people are very diligent to do good deeds so they can get into heaven. And so this is how it works. It's we have an inner knowing that we are here to improve, evolve, grow, transmute, transcend. And so we know that there is a carnal mind, and it can deceive us often. It wants us to, follow the ways of this world as though they are real and solid and what we should be doing. But no, it isn't. We have an inner knowing that before we came to incarnate, we had certain contracts to fulfill, certain obligations and duties, and certain destinies and fates.
How would you suggest that people discover that? I mean, it's obviously, you and I both know that it's far more difficult to explain, how, but I mean, a lot of people ask me constantly, how do I die to myself? How do I discover if, as I go to your website, I was on your website looking at it, and you have some statements from Socrates, 2 from Jesus, 1 from Shakespeare, Gandhi, and Goethe. So you've got, Socrates saying, guiding rule is know thyself. Jesus, the kingdom of God is within you. And also from Jesus, do you not know that you are the temple of God and that the Spirit of God dwells in you? Shakespeare, to thine own self be true. Gandhi, turn the spotlight inward. Goethe, trust yourself and you will know how to live. So with those statements, I mean, they're telling us, but how would you explain it to the people to say, how do I die to myself? How do I find me and what that purpose is?
Well, there's various ways that have been provided. There's meditation, contemplation, reflection. There's also other paths, like, for instance, entheogens. Some people actually do need a plant, like San Pedro or ayahuasca or something, or even just an experience through experience. Unfortunately, though, experience is one of those ones that can be a bit of a problem, like Pinocchio. He wanted to experience the world, but he wanted to be a real boy at the same time. And Pinocchio means pineal ocular in Italian. Pinocchio is the eye of the pineal. So he realized through experiences that he didn't really need those experiences. He needed to go within and to become a real boy. So that's pertaining to us. When Jesus said, let your eye be simple, he was saying, don't go watching red shift, blue shift experiences and reality and thinking that is how you can understand everything. You have to go with your inner eye, keep it simple, and you will see what your purpose is. Now, there are other ways as well. For instance, in astrology, when you do your chart, you will look for the North Node, which is where the moon's ecliptic intersects the sun's, because the sun's on the ecliptic. The sun can never declinate, positive declination or negative. The ecliptic is the trajectory of the sun, and it can't go up or down. It just goes across the sky. Whereas the other 6 planets, they will always be near the ecliptic, in between the 18 degrees belt of the zodiac, but they will also go above the plane and below the plane. And planets like Pluto and Mars, they have a real, massive
massive arc.
The inclination against the sun's ecliptic, whereas the moon doesn't. It can only go 5.5 degrees positive declination or 5.5 degrees negative. So they're always together. But what happens is when the moon actually hits the North Node, it goes above the sun's ecliptic path for 14 days, and then it hits K2, the South Node, and it goes below. So this auspicious point here, that Rahu, the head of the dragon, this is more like the head. You resemble your head, and you can think correctly, and you can have success through being of that energy of having your head, whereas K2, you lose your head. And so it has a negative connotation about it. So the North Node is very important in your chart. In whatever house it falls in, it tells you where growth karmically would be the best place to focus your energy. So there are mechanical ways, rather than just using your intuition and meditating and feeling out, you know, what the universe wants for you. You know, what is the God life path for you. And everyone has this. We all have a purpose. As it says in scripture, a potter makes various vessels for different reasons. You know, some are glorious, a vase to put beautiful flowers in, and then others you can make an ashtray. Mm-hmm. And you know, they have different purpose and different dignity. Mm-hmm. And the same with people. We all have different gifts. Some are healers, some are teachers. Mm-hmm. Some are the kind of people who offer practical help, and we all excel in our various gifts. So it is important to find it. It is important not to squander years in being lost and following the carnal mind.
And most of us spend the majority of our life doing that. You know, I certainly spent a tremendous amount of time not necessarily following the carnal mind, because like you, from a very, very young age, I was always questioning things much differently than anybody else would question them. And I had seen things and experienced things that most people at 12 years old wouldn't experience. But I spent a lot of time from the time I was 11 to the time I was 14 years old in the middle of the wilderness in British Columbia, Canada, by myself. So, you know, hundreds of miles away from anything. So I learned to take care of myself. And that in and of itself will get you to see things in a very different way and understand that there is a synchronicity amongst things on Earth. Once you get away from the elements and you begin to see, you might not be able to put your finger on it, but you begin to identify the Fibonacci, you know, the Fibonacci sequence. You begin to understand what pi is, even though you can't put your finger, you know what these things are. And so once you get into the world and you take the promises that this world promises you and you try to achieve those, I was explaining there's a movie, it's a documentary called Finding Joe. And it's about finding yourself. And it's a brilliant, brilliant film. I don't agree with all of it necessarily or the intention of it, but so much of the story is just genius. And it says that the calling to be the hero, to begin the hero's adventure, is it's like a phone ringing in the middle of the wilderness, right? In the middle of the street, and you pick it up. And you can either pick up the phone, it'll be a phone ringing. That call will come either as a phone ringing or it'll come as a sledgehammer. And but it's going to come to all of us at some point in time. And I'm thankful that I had both. I had a phone ringing, I picked up the phone, and then I got the sledgehammer. So, but it's, you know, what you're explaining is in finding that path within yourself, finding yourself, and then finding, and, you know, people say, well, how do I know what my gift is? You don't know until you actually begin doing it. It's so difficult to explain. And, you know, your channel is, you know, makes mine look small. So you've experienced all of the emails, all of the conversations, all the chats, and all the questions. And I get the predominant questions is, how do I know who I am? And I can only answer in the way that I experienced and say, well, I just discovered it, not because something came up and said, that's who you are. I just discovered it that through doing, that all of a sudden something functioned and it worked, and it was incredibly fulfilling, more than anything. But at the same time, you have the world pulling on you that's like, well, this is incredibly fulfilling, but it sure isn't going to make me any money. It's sure not going to build me a big house. It's definitely not going to make me popular, because when you talk about these things, you are shattering paradigms. You're shattering them. You are destroying temples, the false temples. And that conjures up great anger. Cognitive dissonance instantly takes effect, and people want to challenge and fight and hurt you, and death threats and everything. And that's where scripture comes to life. Christ saying those people will kill you and think they're doing the work of God. So it's incredible that, you know, I watched one of your videos about you're a slave to the Romans, and that your soul is a slave to the Romans. And you can't disagree with it when you see where we're at today, and the monetary systems and what they do and how they change us. It is a false value system based on lies that changes the way that we interpret and see everything. And we begin to put things on each other where we become banks. That's why scripture says, be neither a borrower nor a lender. Now, that doesn't necessarily have to be money. It's don't lend somebody advice expecting to, don't lend them that. You either give it freely with not expecting anything in return. So when you give somebody, you help somebody out. Doesn't matter whether it's monetarily, it doesn't matter whether it's a meal, doesn't matter whether it's a hug. You're not expecting ever anything back. Otherwise, you're a bank. And we've become banks of that guy owes me because I've done this for him. That guy owes me. That guy owes me. And before you know it, you have this massive bank that has all of these things against all of these people. And the systems of the world based on the Romans, and prior to that, Babylon, not any difference. This is Babylonian magic. In order to take what is already inside of us, we all already have these things, and to twist it and to change it just enough to feed something else, feed that beast. And where we're at today is quite different. So if you could, Santos, where do you think we are in the scheme of things? Because we all feel, obviously, something's happening, right? There's something big happening. Something is moving. They can say, oh, it's planet X, or it's this, or all of these different variables, or it's pole shift. And I say all of the above, how you perceive it and understand it. But what do you see taking place, and what do you think that looks like over the coming decade?
Yeah, well, I see it like a woman giving birth. There's a lot of pain, a lot of anxiety, and uncertainty, but at the same time, there's excitement because she knows that something major and big is about to happen. And it could be beautiful. The first time they lay eyes on their child, it may be this beautiful. That's how it was with me when I saw my son. I was just taken aback by his beautiful blue eyes. I didn't expect blue eyes. And he was just beautiful to me. And before that, it was just anxiety. An event is about to happen. And this world is about to bring birth to something. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be big.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it could be a singularity, could be one thing, or it could be 2 or 3 outcomes. Mm-hmm. Because the universe does do this, at the end of the cycles, everything is harvested, the weeds and the wheat. That's why Jesus, when he spoke of the sowing of the seed, and his disciples came in and said, Lord, the seed that we planted last night, an enemy came overnight and planted weeds in among the wheat. Mm-hmm. Shall we pull them out? And Jesus says, no, let them grow together so we can distinguish them at the end of days. And then it will be easier to pluck out the weeds.
And we separate them.
Yeah, separate them and burn them. Mm-hmm. And so the separating process whereby the sheep and the goats, the sheep on the right, which will go off into everlasting blessings, and the goats to everlasting perdition and damnation. So what that's saying is that there is a time at the end of the cycle where all of our deeds go with us. Mm-hmm. And then you will be measured against those deeds as to whether you are worthy to ascend into a better place. And this is all depicted by the Egyptians in their scenes about Amentet and Horus and Osiris, with the scales weighing the heart against a feather. Feather and heart are the same word. So if your heart is not as light as a feather, judgment comes, you know, and you've only got the Son of God, Horus, to intercede and implore the Father with extenuating circumstances and other information that might help the cause of the one being judged. And it's the same with Jesus. He is the intercessor. And so I see that there could be two outcomes. We might be taken as the chosen ones, the ascended ones of the magic number of the saints, 144,000, which is symbolic. And we may actually be transported, always in the same place, but in another dimension. So we'll always be here, but we'll be in paradise. It's a different condition. It's a different frequency. Like your television, you can't be watching Channel 7 and Channel 9 at the same time. It's a solid state. So you have to choose one or the other. And so it's easy for the universe to elevate us and put us into another dimension if we resonate with it and if we're ready. We're not going to be thrown in there if we're not. And so I'm hoping that the way I would love for it, if I were God, and I am in the highest part of me, I would have written the script in such a way that that all will end up being blessed and the outcome will be good for everyone. Not that they'll all get the same exact thing. That's not justice. We're not equal. But I believe that in the singularity model, everyone can go to paradise, but why can't the ones who are more worthy and have done harder work and more work, why can't they just enjoy perhaps a more complete blessing, you know, rather than, you know, again, be reduced to the common denominator, which is how it is in this world. Some of us come into this world with a lot of past glory and good deeds, but we still have to eat and drink and work together with ones who haven't done much work. And this parable, there's a parable where a field owner looks for workers to work in the vineyard and sees some come early in the morning, and he says, well, this is what I'll give you at the end of the day. And they agreed, and they went out to work in the vineyard. Then at midday, others came, and the boss, the master of the vineyard, also negotiated what he was going to give to them. And then at the last hour, other workers turn up, and because there's so much work to do, they were employed. So they all line up at the end of the day for their wage, and everybody got the same wage. And the ones who started early in the morning, they complained to the Lord and said, how is this fair? We've been working so much, and we get the same as these guys who just turned up and did 5 minutes. And Jesus, the Lord and the Master says, did we not agree at the beginning what you would get? He said, well, aren't you happy? I gave you what we agreed. I didn't cheat you. And he said, so it is in that day that whoever should be repentant and really seek the path, whether it's the last hour or not, the universe has to and will accept you and give you the result, the reward of seeking such things.
Yeah, that goes to the first will be last and the last will be first as well.
That's the point. Yes, the first will be last and the last will be first. So never should we think, oh, wow, I've been a philosopher all my life, vegan, or whatever you may, you know, stand for that you think is the good thing to do, and sit back and condemn you know, these others who don't even care to work for the Lord. They're godless, you know, they're busy chasing after the wind. Surely, you know, oh, my rewards and what I will get will be so, you know, exceeding that these people won't even, you know, compare. No, it's not like that. You know, we need to be humble, and we will get our just rewards.
You know, when you mentioned, and maybe smile when you mentioned, you know, if I were to write the script, I would have written it this way. So I'll give you a scenario as to how I've always thought of this, even before I knew much of anything. That, you know, and it was after seeing a picture of deep space, of trillions of universes, and I realized at that point, I went, something's up. If so, regardless of whether, you know, a person believes there's trillions of universes out there, that we're the only one, or whatever that is. But I looked at that and said, well, obviously it's much bigger out there than we know. And if there are multiple universes and there's trillions of them, well, then from me, as made in the image of God and containing that spirit of God, then all I have to do, and this is where the name Global Witness really comes from, I have to witness all things. I have to witness all the evil. I have to witness all of the good, and I have to actually log it and pay attention to what works and what doesn't. And not because I have an opinion about what works and what doesn't, but because I see the fruit that comes as a result of certain actions and things. And as a result of that, I become that book of life. I become that record. I become the judge of myself. Just like Christ said, the Father judges nobody. He's reserved that for the Son. That's us. I'm my greatest judge, because nobody knows what I've done more than me. No one knows what I've thought. The Father, you know, it says that, you know, Christ knows your thoughts. The Father knows your thoughts. He knows you know what you've done. So circumcise your tongue, circumcise your mind, circumcise your heart, all of these things. So I become that judge. So with that said, I, in my heart and in my soul and my spirit and my consciousness, I know what earth should look like. I know what it should feel like. I have that construct already established. So I want to pay attention, and I want to know the bad conditions of everything. I want to know the good conditions of everything. I want to know the truth of love. I want to know the truth of hate and where it comes from and how that comes together. Now, when all of this comes and there's a new heaven and a new earth, well, if I'm the son and I inherit something, and this is a training ground for me to understand really what it is to be that guy that creates the universe, well, there's trillions of them waiting for us. One of them is yours. Now, here's the opposing side, that if we are that powerful, well, if you choose to live in that worldly way, and you like the monetary system, and you like being manipulative and screwing somebody over, well, guess what? That's the world that you'll graduate into. That, to me, is eternal damnation. You want to be in this world? Well, guess what? You get to maintain that, and you get to be the God of that miserable, awful, God-forsaken land. So we'll give you a universe too, but it's going to be hell. But for those that have understood and imagined and paid attention and observed and built and crafted the universe as they see it through the eyes of God, through the things that he's taught us, well, that's your universe. I just thought that was, if I were to write the script, that's exactly the way I would have done it.
Yeah, absolutely. We have so much power, most of it dormant, that we can really create that beautiful universe, as within, so without. First of all, we do the work, the interior work.
Mm-hmm.
And once all of the interior work is, well, it doesn't have to be perfected at all. You can still create as you go, but we have this great power, and we don't know that we have this great power. So we try to manifest things in our life, and we do, but oftentimes we manifest something that wasn't exactly how we wanted it. Somehow, there was many wrong bits with it. Thank you, universe, for the gift, but I didn't really want this aspect about it and what have you. But that's because we haven't perfected it. And we won't get our full power until we are worthy and have proven ourselves to be able to use that power in a correct way. Many people, they get power, and the first thing they do is they misuse it. Like a knife, you can kill someone with a knife, or you can cook your food with it. So it's about choices. And so we have the ability to find our power again. Now, how you do that is through self-love and self-worth. And you won't get this in church.
No, you won't.
That's right. They'll tell you that you're a sinner and you're not good. You're deficient. You're already starting from a very bad, you need all these salvation protocols and what have you, and even to get anywhere near. And then you've got to pay indulgences, and you've got to do all these good works. The Jehovah's Witnesses used to record every hour that they'd go out in the field ministry because, they were reporting to God, and to the congregation how much zealous work they're doing. Well, all of this is limiting our power. It's like saying to a little bug that jumps a meter high, you put him in a little jar and you put a seal on it, and he hits his head on. When you take that little bug out, we all know this illustration. He now has conditioned his mind to only jump so high. And he doesn't remember how to jump to the high heavens. And this is the same with us. We have been traumatized through the whole birthing process in hospital, schooling process, etc., the work, everything, the media, everything is designed to belittle, degrade our godship, reduce it, so that we don't actually get together and organize and use our power collectively and individually to bring paradise on earth. For paradise is only a condition. It's not a place. You don't go there. You live in it, So we can do that. We have the ability. But self-love and self-respect, which is very, very hard to get. It's been a journey for me to do it all my life. I've only recently been able to accept myself as a good person, a loving person, a happy person. And then once you do that, then lo and behold, that's the only way you act. You see, I've found that when I was misbehaving in the past, it was because I didn't love myself. I didn't respect myself. I thought I did. But it's a different thing than loving some other object or subject or anything outside of you. When you look at yourself in the mirror and you meditate and you go within and you find that you love what you see there and what it stands for, its principles, its ideals, etc., then once you do that, then everything you do from now on will be the best that you can do.
Yeah, it's amazing to me that, the church, as you were saying, the church will tell you you're a sinner. That doesn't mean that we're not all broken. If they said you're broken, it's okay. It's very different than going, you're a sinner, because they call you a failure. And the reality is if you're born into failure, then how would you know that you failed? Well, they go, well, we're going to remind you that you failed. And let's not forget that the very first thing that the doctor does when you're born is make you cry. I mean, I have no idea. They say, well, it's so we can make sure he's breathing. Well, why don't you try to make me laugh, jerk? Right? Try to make me laugh then. I have to breathe to laugh too. Why you got to make me cry? Why does that have to be my very first experience in this place? So it's funny to me. I think about stupid things like that ultimately become very profound, and it shows me that there's a pattern of that type of misery here. But the church itself will tell you're a sinner. And the funny thing is that as we're talking about just what you're saying, Santos, is saying that you've only recently learned to really love yourself. And that is that is really the hero's journey, because knowing thyself, once you can know thyself, then you can truly love yourself. But that journey itself is shedding the things that you don't love about yourself. Now, what is it that we don't love about ourselves? We don't love that we did something bad over here. We don't love that we said something hurtful to somebody. We don't love that we stole something. We don't love that we, that we took advantage of somebody. We don't love ourselves because of all of those things. And so the repentance that the church will tell you is you need to repent. Well, the idea for the church and religions all over the world of repentance is begging somebody to forgive them. God, please forgive me. Please forgive me. Well, it's no wonder that they really never, ever believe in God as a result of that, because they don't believe in God as a result. They pretend like they do. They carry the Bible. They go into church every Sunday and Wednesday night, and Sunday morning and Wednesday night. They pretend like they know God, but they don't, because they still feel guilt and shame of being a sinner. I'm just a sinner. I'm just a sinner. No, you're not. Who was Christ? Didn't he tell you to be just like him? He was without sin. Do you think that the guy was without sin his whole life? Do you think that he never had a bad thought at some point in time? If he experienced all things that we experienced, Santos, if he experienced us so he could speak to our condition because he had experienced it, well, then he had to also experience the shame of doing something bad towards somebody, or the sorrow of somebody being killed close to him. All of these things, Christ wept. They're telling you he is human, that the Spirit of Christ, the office of God, finally reaching that point where he could see all of those things. That is dumping. Repentance means turning away from. So all of those things that you hold against yourself, if you're the book of life and the Son is who judges, the Father doesn't judge anybody, he's reserved it for the Son, and you're the Son, then you need to dump and repent from everything that you hate about yourself. And once you can, and now that is, people go, what's the most challenging thing in this journey? Forgiving yourself. Forgiving yourself. It is death. You literally have to want to die. So that's why these awakenings take place in traumatic moments, trauma, where we've gone through something awful. We need to our response to that is, I'll just die. And I don't know whether you've heard the backpack story, but I've told it a number of times that it's a beautiful thing that you take. I've had people come to me and want to kill themselves, and I go, I'll go with you. Let's go. And you take them to the edge of the cliff that they want to jump from, and I go, okay, now let's answer a question though. Why do you need to jump and kill yourself? Well, because I did all of these things. I screwed this guy over. I slept with my brother's wife. I did all these awful things. And you go, okay, well, here's the next question. That's all of those things you have in a backpack that's weighing you over the cliff. Throw the backpack over the cliff. Why do you got to go with it?
That's right.
And they go, well, that's a good question. And I go, well, here's the response, because Christ showed us this, that they will not, especially your family and the ones that you know the most, they will think you've lost your mind, because you're going to go, I'm not guilty of any of those things. I'm without sin. And they'll go, you're not Jesus. They'll basically cast you out. They'll call you crazy, just like they called Jesus crazy. His family said he's nuts, right? Yep. So the testimony of Jesus becomes your testimony at that point. And the way I explain it is that you've thrown that backpack over the cliff. They'll try to walk down there, pick up that backpack and put it back on you. The reason why is because they don't feel forgiveness for themselves. They still feel judged and still feel awful. So why the hell should you be without sin? And that's why he says, if you're not willing to leave family, mother, brother, and even children, you're not worthy of me. It doesn't mean you got to flee your family, but it means you need to understand that when you do forgive yourself and you have become free, your family will probably leave you. And they may return, but they may not. And you have to be comfortable with whatever that condition is, because your crown is far more important. Your peace, your condition is far more important than keeping them happy. We've developed ourselves into a world of should and shouldn't. You should do this, should do this, should do this, should do this, shouldn't do that, shouldn't do that. We spend our entire life establishing who we think that other people want us to be and making that happen. To satisfy who? That's why we have an identity crisis. Everybody, you don't know who you are.
Yeah.
You don't know. You have no idea. You know who they want you to be, but you don't know who you actually are because you're too preoccupied with trying to do what they want.
Yeah.
Once you abandon that, game over. But expect it to be a hard path. And, you know, I see you smile at certain things, and I just know you experienced these things, and it's not a single experience. It's a continual experience. It is the testimony of Christ.
Absolutely.
We all live it as we go through it.
Absolutely. The best point there is that people don't know who they are. And as a consequence, you see people who were on the path, reliable, doing good and encouraging others to do according to their model. And then they reach a point, a crisis in their life, and they just let the load go. And they just almost give up and forget all the good things that they stood for. And they, you know, go back to, like the dog goes back to the vomit, or like the wife of Lot who turned around and became a pillar of salt, simply because the ultimate reason is because they don't know who they are. I mean, if you know that, okay, let's use a crude example. If you know that you are the prince and your father is the king and you're going to inherit his throne, and you know that, you know who you are and your position in the world, you're not going to go and vacate that and do something to thwart that, to ruin that. It's yours. It's your natural right. You're going to be the king. So you wouldn't then go and act like the people who have no appreciation for this role, this office, how important it is, you know, and go and sleep with prostitutes like the prodigal son, and drink with people who intoxicate themselves and live a debauched life, etc. You will guard that because you know who you are. You will act dignified and congruent to the path's calling at all times. Mm-hmm. You will have people who will try and tempt you, like Pinocchio was, and they'll say, come to the fair. Oh, you don't have to go to school. You know, you don't have to do all these things. You can just enjoy your life, etc., and distractions. And so if you know who you are, that will never happen. Unfortunately, the people who have set these examples and were standing tall and that have fallen, that's the reason why they've fallen. They really do not know who they are. And they've vacated a glorious, glorious future for a pot of bread, as Jacob did with Esau. He said, give me a pot of bread. I'm hungry. I don't care about my birthright. Look, you can have it. I don't want to be the firstborn. I'm hungry. Give me some bread. And he didn't know, really, in a sense, or he put it aside, who he really was. He didn't appreciate it. Even if you do know who you are and you don't appreciate it and you think, well, hey, it's fun in the world anyway. Everybody else is doing it, so I'm just going to give up and follow their way and turn from the path. But this is folly. You know, this is only harming us. Mm-hmm. So he who endures to the end is the one that will be saved. We can't just go trying the path for a few years and, oh, that was nice and it helped me and I've grown, but now I'm going to go back to the carnal mind and operate out of the carnal mind. You can't do that. You'll be hurt.
Yeah, it's like people have been conditioned. It's kind of like going to a movie. Oh, I went to that movie and I'm inspired, right? I'm inspired to do something new. And that night they're talking about, oh, I just loved it. I loved it. And then the next day they've completely forgotten about that inspiration and they go right back to the carnal thinking. right? They don't see the potential that they have within themselves. So they've convinced themselves through the night or through their through the subconscious or through their conditioning in the world that, you know, that inspiration was nice, but all of those great thoughts that I had, yeah, I really can't do that. I can't be that. Well, it's the same thing. Somebody goes to a church, they might feel open and they might feel something for the first 2 or 3 times because they want to, and they manifest that within themselves. But then all of a sudden it doesn't happen. And so they lose interest very quickly because it's, again, this is the Babylonian magic that I speak of, that we're expecting something all the time. You know, the reality is that I'm expecting something all the time too, but it's not always good. I expect bad things as well. And just like I've always said is that, you know, I fell from a mountain trying to find everything that I wanted to all of the secrets I wanted. I wanted the peace. I wanted everything that I've been looking for. Well, I fell down that mountain and rocks pummeled me and beat me up the whole way down. And at the bottom, I'm laying in a puddle of my blood. And I look and I find what I've been searching for. The rocks, the blood, and the fall and the pain of it are now beautiful. So to be expecting something all the time, that's a false expectation. You have to go, you know what? I broke this. Why did I break my leg right here? Well, maybe I'm supposed to slow down and limp the rest of the way so I actually pay attention to what I'm supposed to see. Maybe that's what, you know, and so you always have to be, it's not even the glass is half empty or half full. It's recognizing that there are no such thing as coincidences. Everything is put in front of you to show you these things. It's, you know, it goes through the old story of, and I was just mentioning this today during a conversation, is that, you know, the person that wants to be saved, that's drowning in the ocean, and a boat comes by and tries to rescue the guy and says, here, give me your hand. And you go, no, God's going to save me. And then a helicopter comes and lowers a rope and says, here's a rope. And you go, no, God's going to save me. And then the guy dies and goes, you know, what the heck, God, you didn't save me. And he goes, what are you talking about? I sent you a boat and a helicopter. What more can I do? Right? So you got to pay attention to things around you. And it's not always going to come in the way that you would expect. We set up expectations of what it means for God to rescue us. We set up these terrible expectations.
Yep, exactly. And
you'll always be disappointed if you have expectations that you've manufactured with the carnal mind. You're going to be disappointed that it doesn't happen the way, and you'll probably miss what it is that you're supposed to do because you've set up an expectation of what it looked like.
Yep, exactly. And then what happens is the world's pressures also discourage you. You know, for instance, they might say, look, you went and did the vegan lifestyle for all of these reasons, and your health didn't really go much better, right? And then of course there'll always be people around who will add to that. Oh, yeah, look, it's not even a good diet. You know, you need whatever. They will encourage this person to not pursue the diet because they see that they look unhealthy. But that may not be the reason for the unhealthiness. Mm-hmm. It's like judging a fish by how well it climbs a tree. You can't judge like that. You can't just say, oh, look, you look unhealthy and you're a vegan. 2 and 2, put them together, and that's the reason why. So even though people get on that road that is narrow and cramped that leads to everlasting life, mm-hmm. and they do the things that bring rewards, and they do, there will always be voices there to deter them. And the strong one who knows who he is and has character, it's never going to work. He will prevail. And the weaker ones don't. Some of them fall right off and never return. Others fall, get scratched and bruised, and jump right back on again. That's what I've done. Every time I've tried to run away from doing the right thing or give up, like the prophet Jeremiah, he said, I will not speak anymore and prophesy in Jehovah's name. Mm-hmm. I will stay silent. And he said he couldn't stay silent. His bones were burning. and he had to speak the will of God. He tried, he tried to just shut up and go away. I have too. I've made crazy, impetuous vows that, I would just go away and be a hermit and not teach syncretism again because people are unworthy, they're not worth it. And who cares anyway? Are people listening? I mean, I see people who claim to be great syncretists and they're doing things which, betrays their knowledge of syncretism, like ludicrous things, and they think they're on the path. And I'm thinking, well, wow, man, even the great ones, the ones who are saying that they love syncretism and philosophy and they want to ascend, etc., they are doing so much to impede that. It's not funny. So I've tried that, I've actually tens of times, but guess what? I always come back. I cannot stop doing what I'm here to do, and that is to be a teacher and to encourage people to stay on the path and to ascend and offer help. That's my role.
Yeah, it's but see, this is where I just what you said. I've tried that. I went away because why? Is anybody listening? And they're not worthy. And you go through all of those different scenarios because, quite honestly, because of the attacks that come as a result of it, right? It's difficult for me to go into my email, see 2,000 emails in a single month, and have, it's incredible because the people will be judging you. They don't see any of the good you do. They don't see the fruits. They don't see the beauty in the thing. They don't see the people that were going to kill themselves that didn't. They don't see the people that have healed themselves physically because of the things that you spoke of. They don't see that. Mm-hmm. They hear one thing that you said and they condemn you. And here's the crazy part about this world is that the 4 people condemning you will be louder than the 50 people that love you. Much less 50,000 or 150,000. The 4 people will still be loud because they're speaking from the world. So those people coming to you in the world, that's all they hear. And for us, and I was explaining this to Malia, is I said, because I don't like the thank you, I don't like accolades, I don't like people to pat me on the back and you're genius or you're smart or you're beautiful. And I don't want that because I want it to, and I understand that people want to show their appreciation, but I'm very aware that I'm still in the skin suit and that it has that impact. So you don't want to, it's like, I got to wash that off. So as a result of that, you and me personally, we try not to pay attention to the good stuff coming at us. But as a result of that, we do feel the bad. Right? You do feel the bad.
Yeah.
And you basically, and you see it, and it becomes so visible because the visibility of the anger and also, quite honestly, some of the selfishness. I mean, just the people that say, oh, I'm awake, I'm enlightened, the absolute selfishness by which people will act, you just want to throw your hands in the air sometimes.
Yeah.
And so I get it. I fully understand that. But no matter what, you could be angry, you could shut it off, you could shut down. And you watch people do this all the time. You watch them start talking and they feel that they have a calling to say these things to the people of the world. And then they get the attacks and they shut their channel down and start deleting videos. And then they start another channel. They're up and down and up and down. It's like, I watch it all the time.
Yeah.
Me too. Yeah. People have no concept at how much of a calling that this actually is to those that are called to speak it. That's not everybody. I know people that are called just to walk and look at people and not even talk to them, but just positive thoughts and have that impact. And if you think for 1 second, folks, that your thought isn't powerful, well, when you're thinking of somebody that you haven't spoken of or spoken to in 5 years, and they come to your mind and you're thinking about them in a good way, you're like, well, I should probably figure out how to find them again. And bang, your phone rings and it's them. You think that's an accident? We have reduced everything in this world. We eliminate the ability to see God, to see the power in us by diminishing things to, oh, that's a coincidence. Or by happenstance, I happened to get a call from this person right after I was thinking about it. All of this reduction of the power. It's like, clean your mind, circumcise your mind of those things. Everything is intentional. Everything.
Yep. It's
so Santos, I wanted to ask you, because we were talking earlier, you and I want to hear how you're fixing yourself physically. So tell people about your physical condition, targeted individual. We talked about Morgellons. I know that there are quite a few people on my channel, and probably many right now. We have almost 600 people watching right now that are experiencing the very same things you're experiencing. Could you kind of break that down, where you've come from a physical standpoint, what you've experienced, as you said, targeted individual, Morgellons, and what you've done to solve that?
Yeah, well, I'll go straight to the crunch. I used animal dewormer, and it knocked the itch out on the spot. The one I took was called fenbenzidol. That's for dogs. And you need to take with that ivermectin, which is for horses and cows, I believe. The former kills the parasites in your tissue. And so you take that first, because you don't want to take ivermectin on its own and have a massive die-off, because you will, and it could kill you. It's very rare, but it can kill you if all that parasitic die-off happens too quickly. So I take the fenbenzidol, and I think it's 10 grams per every 10 kilos, 1 gram, sorry. But anyway, if people are interested and want to do it, I've got the protocol. I can send it to them. All they've got to do is contact me at contact@universaltruthschool.com. That's my website contact, and I can help them with it. But there's a lot of forums out there talking about how to take these and how the protocol works. It's saved the lives of millions of people around the world. It kills the parasites, which are the agents for all of this targeted individual technology. So they can't really hit you with their pulse weapons unless you have overgrowth of parasites. And so mine were obviously in the skin. I couldn't stop itching. And I would go to bed at, say, 8 in the evening and get horizontal, and I would just start itching, an insane itch. And in the last couple of years, it was so bad that I was suffering sleep deprivation. I was suffering many, many horrible things, cornered into a dark, dark place, that my darkest hour, my reasoning was impaired, my emotions, everything. I was hurtful and abusive, self-sabotaging. I was totally tortured by the itch and everything else that goes with it. It unsettles you. It makes you behave in a way that is not you, because the parasites do that. They are demonic. And I realize now that I've done all my healing with the parasites and also other healing to clear entities. And I've done some San Pedro and peyote. So I've been working with the plants as well, and mushrooms. And they have really, really enabled a great, great healing. Right now, I'm just the happiest I've ever been. I feel so good. I feel confident. I feel restful. And I don't have this feeling anymore of wherever I am, I'm in the wrong place. I need to be somewhere else. Guilty. Always feeling like, what am I doing here? I've got more to do. There's always a duty, a sense of duty, which causes me to then, be right on my purpose and, probably overexert and devote myself too much to syncretism and not enough to leisure. And so I've been very unbalanced. So when you remove the parasites, you're now able to think for yourself properly the way you really are. You're able to act as per what's in your heart. There's no voices impeding you. There's no voices derailing you and you know, taking control and making you do things that you would never, ever otherwise do. So I encourage people to have a think about it. I was told about ivermectin about a year and a half ago, a beautiful woman who had been watching my information about my health and how much I'm suffering. And she reached out and said, Santos, you really need to take this Japanese invented parasite killer. It kills the nerves of the parasites, knocks them out dead, dead, dead. And you need to take that. And I know the symptoms. I have the same symptoms and I cured it. And unfortunately, I was not persuaded and I just let it go. I didn't act on it thinking that you can't take animal products. You know, a human cannot do that. It's just not right. It can cause trouble. So I wish I didn't, but we have to learn sometimes the hard way, and I did. And I could have spared myself the worst year of my life. Yeah. But anyway, I'm back on track. I take the, this is the fenbenzidol. Mm-hmm. It's from the Ukraine. You won't be able to read that, but fenbenzidol is the dog dewormer. And then ivermectin, there's a lot of people out there talking about the glorious, miraculous healing properties. It basically just cures everything. People have cured tumors, arthritis, bowel disorders, digestion disorders, cancer, headaches, etc. Everything. Because at the root of all disease is parasites.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, there's no question about it. Parasites, it's remarkable that we don't really know necessarily just how parasitic we are. That we live amongst it, and obviously I think it's probably getting much worse today. And just so you know that I have a fairly good understanding, I'm going to show you a picture right here. This was a removal of a parasite that came as an interesting way, but I could feel it, and it would vibrate, and then it was pulled out, and it was a parasite, like a worm. That was right here. What's that?
Is this you?
That's my side, yeah.
Wow, man. Wow. How long was this parasite?
Probably about 7 inches.
And how did you remove it?
Well, here's the crazy part about it is, and this is a story that is, if it didn't actually happen, I wouldn't believe it. Now, the great part about it is that I found that when certain things have happened in my life, that there's always somebody else there to witness it. So I can ask them, did that really just happen? You know, just to make sure that it wasn't me kind of losing it a little bit. And so what had happened is I felt this thing in my side vibrating, like I would laugh and it would vibrate and it would like tickle, kind of like and I was like, it felt like something was in there. And if you've ever had a knot in your muscle, like, where your muscle twists and you get a cramp, right? It would kind of do that, but it didn't hurt, but I would say something and it would twist up and I could put my hand there and feel something there. And I'm like, what is that? Like, it was weird. And the craziest thing is I had my house in Los Angeles was vacant. And I walked in, it was on a 2-acre piece of property. It was a big estate and it had locked gates. So I hit the gate and the gate opened and the house was vacant because I was selling it. And I looked down to the very end of the driveway, which traversed the entire length of the property, and the property was an acre property. So it's a pretty long driveway. And under this canopy that I had was a black truck with a black canopy on it. And the canopy's door was open. Now I'm thinking gardeners or something, but I had fired the gardeners because I was selling the house. So I walk up and there's a guy with me. Now my dog is in the yard, who's a pit bull, and a pit bull named Rocket. Loved me. Sweetest dog ever, right? Loved me. Happy to see me and everything. Jumping on me, just like, loving them. And I've had pit bulls my whole life. So it's, I've trained them extremely well. They're incredibly obedient. But I walk up to the back of this truck and I look in the back of this truck and there is piles of straw and there are tarot cards laying everywhere. And the death card is there with a broken egg on it and blood squirted over the egg. And I'm thinking somebody's coming to screw with me. But as I saw that, I said to the guy that came with me, I go, what the hell is this? And the second I said that, my side vibrated and my dog bit the side and pulled that right out of me and then dropped it on the ground. You vanished on me.
You got to be kidding.
No,
the dog actually
grabbed it. Yeah, he grabbed it and had it on the ground and was biting it. And I was like, drop that. And first of all, I got to tell you that when it was removed from me, it was like electricity went through every single inch of my body. It was like I was being electrocuted. It was as though I had gone through I can't even explain the pain. I've been bitten by dogs, but trust me, it's not a dog bite my side because he actually didn't. And the amazing part was you can see that's not a dog bite in the picture, and I'll show it again. That's not a dog bite. Whatever he pulled from me, it was as though if you took a rope and you put it in hot wax and you kind of swirled it around and then you let the wax, like a rope in wax, and then you pulled the rope out of the wax, it would leave a concave round like the shape of the rope when you pulled it out. That's exactly what that looked like when it happened. And here's the crazy part about it was when it pulled out, there wasn't any blood, only a tiny little bit, but it was really wet. And instantly I was trying to, I don't know what it struck me, but instantly I heard and blood and water flowed. And I was like, it pricked him in his side. What was that? I was like, what is that? And it was mind blowing to me. And I was like, wow, maybe there is something in all of us that must be removed. That's right there at that spot in the side. I still can't answer this question. It's one of those open questions that, when I tell people, when you learn something new or something is weird, don't contemplate on it too much. Just wait. The answer will come around. But when the dog pulled it out, he had it on the ground and it was like a translucent worm.
Yep, seen them.
Translucent little snake. And its head didn't have any identifiable eyeballs, but its shape was like a little human head. It was the creepiest thing I had ever seen in my life. And I didn't know, and I was in so much pain because of this electrical current flowing through my body. I'm laying there on the ground and I could not take my hand off my side. And my dog's trying to attack this thing on the ground. And I'm like, leave it, because I wanted to see what the heck that thing was. And I said to the guy that came with me, and I still know him, so like if people call BS on it, I can always go, hey, ask that dude. He was there, right? Still to this day, he goes, yes, it's the craziest thing I've ever seen. And
so the dog knew it was in there and just took a bite and pulled it out.
Yeah, it's almost like it was just at the level of the skin that he could get to and pull it out. And the guy that was with me, he looked at the dog and he goes, that dog pulled that thing out of your side like a freaking surgeon. And that's literally what it looked like. It looked like this, like a surgeon had pulled something out of you. It was the craziest thing. I can't, you can't make that stuff up.
No, but in the scripture, this is called the worm that dieth not.
Yes, and see, and this is the other thing. You can look into scripture and it says that they will go into the hell where their worm does not die. And I'm like, what is this worm? I believe it's Isaiah says it, and also Christ says it. It's twice. It's two different passages. and it's the worm that does not die. And I was like, well, mine's dead because I watched it die. So
same here, man. I have smashed those parasites. I always thought you don't go out and kill them because you can cause harm. You've got to slowly do it, etc., etc. No, no, no. You need to destroy those parasites over a process. And this process, the protocol I'm on, will probably be a minimum of 6 weeks where you have to repeat it 3 or 4 times. So I take the fenbenzidole for 5 days straight in a row, and then have a pause of a couple of days, then the ivermectin a couple of times. And then you repeat this because you want to get their egg cycles. Otherwise, they'll come back. They'll find a way of coming back, like the demons in the parable of Jesus, where he says one demon is expelled and then he goes away and then he
finds waterless places.
That waterless places, dry regions, yes, and he didn't find anything. It was all parched land. So he thought, well, I'll go back to my house where I came from and I'll grab 7 more nastier demons and go back. Well, it says there that the lot of that man is way, way worse in the end because he didn't keep his house clean. He didn't protect himself. And so the same with these parasites. You don't just do it once and think, right, that's it, it's done. No, they will find a way back. One thing you have to remember, all the listeners, is that they have one intent and purpose, and that is to feed off your energy. And they will do everything in their power to keep their home. And you must do everything in your power to thwart them, so that they do not prevail. If I had have known the real root and cause of my problems, I would have acted a lot sooner. I wish I had listened. I wish I had known, because the stuff that's happened to me in the last couple of years, especially the amount of bad luck and horrible things out of my control, mostly right out of my control, could have been different. And the world can be different. You know, people are under parasitic influence and they don't know it. You know, they're hurting themselves and they think it's just the way the world is. They end up committing suicide or isolating themselves or going on some awful medication like Xanax or Prozac and all of these things, where they actually it actually enables the parasites even more to take over. And it's worse in the end by taking these protocols and by not knowing what the real reason is. So here I am, I'm able to help people by my experience. Millions of, or hundreds of thousands of people have heard about it because I've been sharing it for the last couple of years, and they're all waiting with holding their breath, waiting to see how I'm going to get out the other end. And that's it. I've done all the other protocols. I've done the MMS, the hydrogen peroxide, you know, the black walnut hulls and wormwood and all of these other protocols, and they just skirt around the issue. They don't really get to the core and have results. So I'm very, very, very happy with this. And once the 2-month period is over, where I have not itched for 2 months and I have a good, like a track record, then I will publish my protocol. So usually I'm just really, really enjoying the piece that comes from it. Right now, I'm probably a little bit not so as calm as I can be. I think it's because I had some kratom and it makes me itch. So I can see that I'm a little bit sort of not so centered in myself right at the moment. I may have taken too much, I don't know. And it does cause me to itch. So I am having a little bit of a scratch here and there, but it's just an effect from the kratom. But my days are 100% purely non-itching, and I rest well, sleep well. In fact, the first time I took the ivermectin or the fenbenzidole, I remember I was itching and I went to bed and I was itching, and then I got up and I thought, well, I'll just do this protocol. And I took it And within 10 minutes, all of the boisterous noise that I had in my GI tract, it just went calm and quiet. And a tiredness came over me and a tranquility. And I just slept for about 10 hours straight. Woke up the next morning thinking, well, that's never happened before. You know? It was instant healing.
Well, that's awesome. I'm glad that, some people have been asking, you know, what the dosages were. Is there a place, I believe you said, go to Universal Truth School and contact you for what you've been, you know, the specific dosages of what you've been using?
Yep. Just send a quick message, just brief. I saw the show. I want to know how to do the parasite protocol. And I've got it ready there in a letter, in an email, and I just add that to the email and send it off. It will give you where to buy both of those products and some of the forums and websites talking about the protocols and how they do it, because there's a little bit of a variance and discrepancy in how some actually administer it and so forth. But it's always around about the same, just that certain people have had different results from different ways. But in the end, I just say, just take it. Take the stuff, you know, dose it, find out the dose, and just go ahead. There's no symptoms, you know, there's no side effects. I mean, none at all. You just feel calm, and there's no dangers involved with it, according to all those beautiful people out there who are doing it.
Well, awesome. You know, I think you and I could probably pick some different subjects, and we could do multiple shows. And you just let me know, Santos, anytime you wanna come on, and we'll make sure we can, you know, we'll have it, because I've just been watching the chat here and trying to pay attention and look at some of the questions, and I'll, you know, if anybody has any questions, just lastly here, we'll try to take a couple. If you can post them in all caps, it's helpful for me to see them because it goes fairly quick. And we can do that. And, you know, it might be a good, you know, the great part about Zoom here, and I use the webinar side of things, it's a paid version of Zoom, but I can also bring on people, Santos, that, and have them come on audio or even video, and they can come on and ask questions. And maybe one time that you can come on and we can have a discussion and bring some other people on, because I think it's very helpful for people to hear the types of things that we're talking about. I mean, this is, folks, just to help you understand also, Santos and I basically got on here, we said hello. We didn't really plan to talk about a whole lot, with the exception of that Santos said that he wanted to talk about the, you know, what he's done with the parasites. But this is how, if Santos and I sat down and we started to talk, this is what we would be talking about. This is how our conversation would be. So this is kind of, this is what I love about Santos, is that it's kind of just inviting all of you to join us for a conversation that we would have. So I think that we can, we've gone an hour and 45 minutes, and I'm sure that it seems like everybody has been paying close attention to it. But I'll let you go so you can relax a little bit. And I truly appreciate you coming on, Santos. You know, I really want to do more of these with you. So, you know, we can pick some specific pieces of things that you want to discuss, and go from there, and we'll have another show. If everybody agrees, go ahead and put it in chat or in the comments after the show. Make sure you hit like. Let's defeat those YouTube algorithm gremlins where they try to eliminate this stuff. And, you know, they're really monkeying with all of our videos right now. Badly. Yeah. So, you know, people that go, oh, well, I'll unsubscribe and then I'll just find his videos. If you don't remember to, you know, what the name was, you're not going to find them again, because they are not putting those up in the recommendation engine at all.
Yep.
So, so folks, the only way that people are going to know about this video is if you share it. If there was anything within this show that you feel that was important for somebody to know, then share this with them, send it, because we've spoken about a lot of things here that I think are critically important, and at least it's a start, and we'll try to get into some deeper things when we go. And if and when Santos wants to, I'll bring him on at any time he wants to come on. So if you want to hear from Santos, then you email him and say, get on Derek's show again.
In fact, that's why I contacted you about 6 months ago. I had, I think it was, well, it was 2 people and a few others. But these 2 people, they went out of their way to say, Santos, contact Derek, because there's a lot of people in the chats talking about how good it would be for you to get on because you're on the similar path and talk the same themes, etc. And so those 2 people that I know and respected, they prompted me. And then I messaged you and you said, yeah, let's do a show. And then I had some problems with my emails back then. I was losing them left, right, and center. They were messing with me. I've been messed with on Facebook, my emails especially. And so I thought, well, maybe Derek's busy. I know he's moving. Maybe he forgot or whatever. So that's why a few weeks ago, I thought, well, I'll see what happened and I'll contact you again. And so that's why we're here. And your idea of doing more, I'm keen, brother. I'll offer myself anytime. You know,
that would be great. That would be great. I think we could pick. I'm sure, and you folks, you can send me emails if you have questions or concepts or things that you want us to discuss, because I can promise you that both Santos and I have probably gone through all of the questions and all of the things that you would want to discuss. I just encourage everyone to look for things that are going to be helpful. If somebody asked me, what materials or what was the purpose of the pyramids or something like that, I go, well, if you get the answer, here's what I encourage everybody from the short time that I feel that we have to actually go through and do the hard work, the internal work. Make sure that the question that you have, if you have the answer, will be actually helpful to you. So I just encourage you to do that. It'll save you some time, I promise. I've been on the path where I asked questions and then I got the answer and I thought, well, that did me no good. So
I know. And sometimes some of these questions, they're not even a priority. It's just a curiosity. I don't think those need to even be addressed. Those answers will come. I think the real serious-minded ones with the real serious questions, those will stand out. And I'm sure your listeners will indicate to you what they'd like to talk about next time, and I can prepare. Sometimes notes and preparation make for a really good interview, which I never do. I never have notes, but I can do it, because I can present better, I guess. So, yeah, I like the idea, brother. I offer myself. I'm available for that.
Oh, awesome. That's terrific. So we'll definitely plan that. And for those folks, just as a quick announcement, for the USB drives with the Global Witness videos, as I mentioned and I put up in the community section, I had to choose different USB drives. They're the shape of keys now. I don't know if I have one here readily available, but they're the shape of a key. So the keys to the kingdom, just like this show. It contains the Global Witness videos on it, just in case this channel is ever taken down. You'll have access to those, and you'll have them. You can just plug that into your TV, and the videos take up literally every single bit and byte space available on the key. So there is nothing else but the videos on there. I can promise you that. And those are starting to go out. So if you haven't received them, or if you received the old one, you'll probably get a new one as well. I just wanted to let you know that. I want to thank everybody for the support for myself and mine and Malia's marriage, and support for my mom and the ministry. I just want to thank everybody for coming, and we could not do this without you. I truly, I'm always humbled by it. And so I just wanted to say thank you to everybody out there that supported us. And Santos, again, thank you for joining me today. And I look forward to doing this again really soon, very, very soon, and many, many times.
For sure, brother. I'd just like to mention at the end here that I'm coming to North America in September. So really? It's only about 6 weeks away. And I'm going to be centered in Kentucky, where I've got some friends who have a cottage where I'm going to be living. And they're already organizing presentations in DC, Pittsburgh, New York, and all the East Coast as we speak. So I'm putting that out there because you might have some listeners there who may have some ideas. I'm making myself available for the first time since 2013 to do public work, public presentations.
Okay.
And travel the world. I'm going to, there's also one presentation being organized in Cancun in Mexico during that 6 months that I'll be in the United States. So if there's anyone out there that has ideas, venues, or anything that they want to do to advance syncretism, I am available, and I'm offering myself only to take syncretism to the road.
Well, how about this? Since you're going to be out in October, the first week in October, I'm doing a conference here in Phoenix. It's probably going to be 2 or 3 days. I'm going to be covering a whole bunch of different areas. I was planning on bringing in other speakers and also some music and different things. But it's just going to be a gathering of like-minded folks, and it'll be at a hotel and a conference center out here in Phoenix. And I can probably find a way and figure out how to bring you out here and get you out here for that, and that way we can spend some time and have you present there. So folks, if you haven't set up your reservation for the conference, the link is down in the description box below there, and I'm going to work really hard to get Santos out at that. So we just figured that out just now. So wonderful. Well, I love that. I love how things work out. And also, we'll probably be in Pensacola, Florida, a few times down there, which is a little bit closer to Kentucky than Phoenix here. But maybe we can get you down there. We'll figure that out and how we make that happen. But Santos, I think that we've got some things to do in the future.
Yeah, I'm sure we have. I can feel it.
Yeah.
It's the time is here, and we have to make ourselves available. You know, I tried to run away from this. In 2013, I just finished a tour of Europe doing syncretism, and I had my 2 passports stolen and my computer. And that set me on a very, very destructive downward spiraling path where I just rejected any public work. And I haven't done a presentation since the last one I did in Italy. And I'm going to do one in 10 days here, 10 days time in Melbourne, the first one since. So I now have entered a new era in my life where I will just always be available, despite whether I'm not sleeping or itching or whatever. And I won't basically go back into that horrible, world where I blocked syncretism from prospering any further. I'm going to let it, give it my best shot and let it flourish and water it and make it grow as best I can.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. I can't wait to meet you in person, Santos, and we'll end it here. Just saying goodbye to the folks. And Santos, if you can stick around for just a minute, so I can say goodbye to you formally. And I just want to thank everybody for joining here. I love you all. Thank you again for your support. And I'll go through the questions in the chat after the fact when I get a little bit more time to scan through. So if you had questions or anything else or something that you needed to inform me of, I will see it. I love you very much. Thank you.